Welcome to Module 2, Lesson 2. We are solving quadratic equations. To prepare for this lesson, you need to be familiar with your TI-84 graphing features, and you need to be able to solve equations graphically using the intersection method. The learning objective is very straightforward. We need to be able to solve quadratic equations, which is exactly what this title of this lesson is called. However, even though that is a very simple, straightforward learning objective, this is one of the harder lessons in this course. And the reason is we're going to learn how to solve quadratic equations using 4 different methods. Now, the fourth method that we're going to go over, which is using the quadratic formula, that works for every single quadratic equation, period. So if you only learn one of the 4, this is the one method to learn. Now, while this one works for every type of quadratic equation, it is not the fastest method. Factoring is in general quicker and easier. The problem with factoring is not every quadratic equation is factorable. We can use the graph to find any solution here by using our zero method. In the real world, this one works perfectly every single time. For in this class, sometimes my math lab wants the exact answer, and this will not give me the exact answer. It will give me a decimal equivalent answer. So that one's not always going to work for this class either. Out in the real world, perfect, but for my math lab purposes, not the best one. The square root method is probably the easiest of the 4, but it's going to not be in a form for square root method the least amount of times. So I can't use that for every quadratic. I can use the quadratic formula for every single one. So why are we learning the other 3? Well, because these other 3 are faster. So if they are applicable, it is nice to have some quicker methods. But that quadratic formula works every time. So if you learn one, get really, really good at that method. So that also means as we're going through these lessons, if you don't like factoring, if you aren't understanding the zero method, if you don't get the square root method, hang on tight. Once you get to the quadratic formula, hopefully you understand that one and you can just use that one for every single type. Another reason that this lesson can be harder is because we're going to have a lot of application problems. And those just always aren't a crowd favorite. So as I have said, this is one of the harder lessons. So please use this video to your advantage. Pause it and rewind it as often as you need. As I go too fast, pause the video and go back, watch me solve it, and then you can pause it and write everything down. But use that to your advantage here. And then this lesson's homework is due on, look at your course schedule or calendar to see when your assignment is due. I want to go ahead in this intro video, go into the next page and talk about this first half right here. In last lesson, we went over quadratic functions, and this is very similar. So your quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. So we need to be able to identify our a, b, and c. Our a is whatever is our x squared term, so it's that coefficient of our x squared. B is our coefficient of our x term, and then c is our constant. Kind of as stated in the front, in this lesson, we're going to review the following 3 ways to solve the quadratic or to solve a quadratic equation, and that is by factoring, square root method, and the quadratic formula. Now, as we go through, we want to keep in mind this right here, and that is when you are solving a quadratic equation by any of these 3 methods, graphically, what you are finding are its x-intercept or intercepts. More times than not, it will have 2, but it is possible that it only has 1. And we kind of went over that last lesson when we were talking about the discriminant. So here's that 4th method is by graphically, what we are finding are those x-intercepts. Now in your calculator, they refer to x-intercepts as a 0. And so those mean the same thing. So let's go on to the next video and we will start by solving by factoring.